Welcome to the Food Clues podcast, where we dive deep into the world of holistic health and wellness, conquering your food allergies and intolerances one bite at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Alexis Sams, holistic physical therapist, food allergy specialist, but you can call me the food allergy doc. With this podcast, I'm all about helping you conquer your food allergies naturally. Through my unique Food Clues treatment approach, I've helped hundreds of people uncover the root causes of their food reactions and achieve true freedom from allergies and intolerances by identifying the missing links between their trigger foods and the underlying causes driving those triggers. In each episode, I'll be sharing the latest in my holistic health practices. I'll also be sharing transformative success stories. I'll bust some common myths surrounding healthcare and food allergy management and provide practical tips to support your healing journey. Whether you're struggling with chronic food allergies or looking for natural ways to manage other symptoms and enhance your well-being, this podcast is for you. Today's episode is packed with insights and actionable advice for better health that's right up your alley. So let's get started on the path to a happier, healthier you.
Today, I'm sitting down with a special guest, Dr. Alexis Sams, PT, the food allergy doc. And those of you who know me personally know that this conversation is personal to me as well, because I've had my share issues with food. We're going to talk about knowing your food clues as the key to optimal health. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about her. Dr. Alexis Sams, also known as Dr. Alexis Sams, also known as the food allergy doc, pioneers holistic solutions for conquering food allergies and chronic conditions. With a decade of expertise, she guides individuals to reclaim health and freedom. Her innovative Food Clues framework offers a path to living without fear of debilitating symptoms. Welcome to the show, Dr. Alexis.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you about minding yours in regards to food allergies.
Yeah, I'm here for it because, that whole minding mine is about being intuitive, right? It's about trusting your instincts and trusting your gut. But I feel like people in general, but more specifically women, are taught from when we're very, very young to ignore ourselves, right? We are taught that when you have dinner, like, you don't stop eating because you're full. You stop eating because mommy said your plate is empty, right? You don't have dessert because you want it. You have dessert because you earned it by eating the food that mommy and daddy told you to. It's just little things like that that start you learning to focus on an outside resource instead of focusing on yourself. And then as you continue to flash forward, we're taught to be nice, even when other people are making us uncomfortable. We're taught to silence our voices, which really, it just kind of snowballs straight into adulthood, where even when something is really bothering you, even when in your gut you feel something is wrong, you question, am I just being dramatic?
No, not
Really
at all.
happening, right? So I'm really excited for you to just be able to knock those thoughts out of our heads and help guide us to trust ourselves, ask the questions we need to ask, and know how to move forward.
Oh yeah, totally. So, gosh, I could talk about this topic forever because the vast majority of clients that I work with are women. They're women ages 35 to 55. And exactly what you said, over the years, starting very young into our adult lives, going into our careers, we've been told to silence ourselves, to not talk about things when they're bothering us. And to an extent, a lot of our experiences have either been invalidated or misinterpreted and misunderstood. And that, again, like you said, it just snowballs into a lot of mess that I feel ultimately ends up within us in a silencing, a shame, a guilt, a hiding, bringing that energy of unworth towards ourselves, all because we aren't given the space and the freedom to be able to speak, discuss, and explore what's going on. And that's personally something that I'm trying to change within the container of food allergies and intolerances. So
Mhm.
I'm so excited. Like I said, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I know you talked about like that shame and that silencing. Do you feel like a lot of your clients just get to a point where they feel like they're forcing themselves to accept that this is their reality and there's nothing they can do about it?
100%. Just about every client that I work with, we end up having some conversation or the beginning of us starting to talk even before we start the actual physical treatments and things like that. It starts off with things like one of their health practitioners has told them that there's no cure for food allergies or intolerances. So you're just kind of living your life, avoid what you can. I hear a lot of it's all in your head, or the symptoms, they just, that's really not happening. That's not what's going on. Or you'll get a blood test done or some other type of diagnostic test. And when that test comes back normal, I'm doing air quotes right now, when it comes back normal, then your symptoms are just blown off as, oh, it's probably nothing because your tests are negative or your tests are normal. And all of those things start to, again, like invalidate your feelings and invalidate the symptoms that you tangibly feel and experience on a daily basis that are holding you back from living your best life. And start off a conversation with a newer client that those symptoms are valid, being able to ask questions and ask why is a valid question, that usually just starts us off on such a good foot. And that conversation continues as they go through the healing process from the physical perspective. As they go through, there is an initial stage of I don't hear anything for a while because they've kind of regressed back into that silencing. And then the next time when I reach out, it's all of these symptoms. And so sometimes we have to have the conversation of, why didn't you reach out? Oh, I didn't want to bother you, or it didn't seem like it was a big deal. And again, that's all those narratives that were kind of like impressed upon us. And I think it's a blessing, an opportunity, and it's a responsibility on my part for each and every person that I talk to and each and every person that I work with to start breaking down those walls and breaking down those barriers and letting people know, letting women know, no, you have the right to ask the questions. You have the right to speak out and say, this isn't feeling right. And you have the right to search to find the person who is willing to listen and put those puzzle pieces together for you to get you the answers that you need so that you know what's going on in your body and the path to healing so that those symptoms essentially resolve. And so that's day in, day out what I do every day. And I love it. And I just love the opportunity to be able to impact women in a way that I actually didn't think I would be doing 10 years ago. So it's been a great journey.
I mean, I can imagine that for the woman that calls you, it has to feel good just to hear you say what you're feeling is real. I believe you and I'm going to help you, right? Because it's so,
Mhm.
I've gone through the same thing. I had tons of food allergy testing done. I was diagnosed with several intolerances and some allergies as well, but essentially was told like just avoid them. So I had to do elimination diets. One of them was for up to 6 months, which really triggered a lot of my old dieting issues.
Mhm.
I worked so hard to let go of that dieting lifestyle, and then restricting myself in that sense brought up a lot of those old narratives I used to carry. But it was also this frustration of feeling like, so I just avoid these things for the rest of my life in order to feel comfortable. And what happens when now, even though I'm avoiding all of these things, I'm still uncomfortable? Like, what do I do now? And the response is, well, you're not allergic to anything else. So, maybe it's phantom
Mhm.
issues. Maybe it's in your
You're
mind, which really made me no longer want to reach out.
Yes, 100%. It, like we said, that silencing kind of effect.
Yeah.
If you keep getting kind of like the door shut, when you try to step up and advocate for yourself and ask those questions, eventually, yes, you stop. I tell a lot of clients, or even like in my social media, you'll hear me talk a lot about food allergies being almost like a check engine light for your car. If you're driving around and your check engine light comes on, no mechanic is going to tell you to avoid it. No mechanic is going to tell you to ignore the check engine light. And you already know, you have an inherent sense that if you keep ignoring that check engine light, you might be able to drive for a while,
Yeah.
but probably something is going unchecked. And one
Yeah.
day, car is going to break down. And then
Yes.
you're going to be stranded. And then there's going to be an issue. And then there's going to be more to have to work on when you finally do get it to the mechanic.
Mhm.
And food allergies work the same way. That's what's on the surface, but there's usually something else stirring in your body, and you'll be okay for a while until you're not. And being able to help women have that conversation so we can figure out what their food allergies or their food reactions are actually linked to. One, it helps clear up that symptom to begin with. And two, it helps them either reduce the onset of other conditions, or we discover under other conditions that we can get under, or they already have the conditions and we're able to use the food reactions to make a better connection for why they're happening and help that. Working with food allergies and food reactions with some women, I've also been able to work with them and help them get them off of like hormone replacement therapy or thyroid medication, blood pressure medications, because they're all connected. So again, having those conversations with the women who are brave enough to try one more time and have one more conversation with somebody and tell their story one more time, it pays off for them in the end, because yes, they've now connected with somebody who is willing to listen and can give them an answer,
Yeah.
for what's going on and why it's happening. And all that to say, I'm not the only one out there. Let me just put that out there. I'm very passionate about what I do, but there are a number of us who are starting to speak out more about what we're able to do without prescriptions, without injections or tons of tests and things like that. So we're out here and we're here for you guys. And yeah.
So maybe can you walk us through, like, what does it look like if let's say I came to you and I said, maybe just sharing my story. I had these food intolerances, did the eliminations. I did feel better temporarily, but then symptoms started coming back and was just told, either avoid it forever and the rest is not really relevant. What does working with you look like? Like, how do you tackle something like that? Like, how do you start diagnosing if you're not doing like specific testing? What's the process like?
Sure. It all starts off by saying, like, actually, the answers and all the information that I need is actually inside of you.
Mm.
It's all inside of you. And it's a matter of having the conversation and getting the information that I don't see at the surface to pull everything together. I talk a lot about the food allergy weed in the garden of like your life. So if you imagine that you're a beautiful garden and you've got these pesky weeds just sprouting up everywhere. They're, encroaching on your beautiful roses and everything, and they're just really this horrible eyesore. That's kind of what your food allergies are like. Now, if I told you, I'm going to get rid of this weed for you, I'm going to take care of this weed so that your garden will be beautiful, and then I just go and pick a couple of the leaves off, you're going to probably look at me cross-eyed and be like, girl, like, you didn't fix it. Like, the weed is still there.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the elimination diet. That's kind of like the antihistamines. Those are like the symptoms that just kind of like cover the reactions, which are your leaves. Your leaves are kind of like your itchiness, your tongue swelling, your abdominal pains. Those are your leaves. I could look at your weed and pick some of the leaves and even prune some of the stems. And you can still look at me cross-eyed. And even more because now it's this ugly old just bunch of sticks sticking up because I cut off all your leaves.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of a deeper level where people can get to a little treatment of some systems or some organs that might be factoring in, but still not all of them. That would be almost like your immunotherapies, recognizing that immune system overreaction or immune system dysfunction is driving the allergy, but something is still causing that overreaction. Your immune system doesn't just wake up one day and just say, like, I'm going to overreact. Like, there's something driving it. So going back to the weed, if I dug it up and really dug around all the roots and really like yanked it out, or if I didn't want to work that hard and I had a really good like weed killer, but it was natural, it wasn't chemical.
Yeah.
But I had this like nice natural weed killer and like sprayed the whole thing, and then it shriveled up, and then all I had to do was just like kick it. Yeah, just pluck it and the whole thing comes out. That's essentially the work that I do. So I don't stop at the leaves. I don't stop at the stems. The stalk is usually a global dysfunction that's going on in the body, like difficulty with eliminating waste products from the body. And then that allows it to build up so that when you eat certain foods that are similar to that waste product, we start to have reactions because we're so built up with stuff. That would be like what the stalk is. The roots would be the things that are causing that buildup, like an old toxicity, an old infection that's still kind of like trapped in the body that causes it to be kind of like down and out and not functioning optimally. So when you're talking about how does the process work or how does somebody get started, I look for signs of all of those things. I don't just look at your leaves and what's happening at the top, even though I honor them because that's what you see and feel every day. But I also look at your stems, I look at that stalk, and I'm looking for those roots, those, I can probably give you some examples. I got strep throat a lot as a child. I'll hear stories like that. I always had belly aches, or I always had headaches when I was younger, or I was in the hospital, I was born with jaundice, things in childhood that were either kind of taken care of on the surface, or just might have been just kind of like, well, we'll just kind of keep an eye on it and let it run its course. If it's not dealt with, particularly in a natural way to improve function, it's still stirring in us. And usually those are the drivers that down the road are causing us to react to qualities of certain foods.
Interesting.
Not the whole food itself, certain qualities.
So do you find that the majority of your work, initially at least, is about almost like interviewing, getting deep into questioning? So I'm picturing, because I'm a visual girl, I'm picturing that process, and I'm wondering if it's a difficult process for you because of the disconnect that we feel with our bodies. You know, you could ask a million questions, and if we're unaware of ourselves, I imagine that makes things a little bit more difficult for you. And like, how do you work around that?
It's yes and no. So in actuality, the first step in my program is what we call is a wellness profile, which is a questionnaire that the client fills out. And they don't have, and I tell them this, it's not your job to know what it all means. It's your job to get it all out. So anytime that you've had a symptom, or if it applies to you, you check that box. And don't worry about if it happened once, if it happened 20 years ago, that doesn't matter. If it happened, check the box or write it down.
Okay.
And then when it comes to me, one, I've programmed the questionnaire so that it pops out the information in the way that I need to see it. But two, I'm able to pull all of that information easily together. And then we meet for a virtual session afterwards and we go over it all. So essentially, when they fill out the questionnaire, we meet and I present to them, you already know what your leaves are. Let me show you your stalk. Let me show you your roots. That's why you check this box. Those boxes that you checked, this is what it means. And this is probably why you still have these leaves, these still reactions. So we have that conversation to pull everything together so that everything makes sense for the client.
So when you start talking about healing the body and healing these reactions naturally, right? Is it a plan of attack to address the root and watch the other things kind of dissipate? Or is the plan to kind of address each area, like the leaf, the stalk, the root, all separately? Like, how does that work?
That's a really good question. It actually starts more, I'll put it this way. The first general stage is preparing the body. We have to prepare the body to heal. We can't just start throwing things in. And actually, God bless my ladies. A lot of them have done a lot of research and they've tried a lot of things on their own, again, because they're told it's in their head or just figure it out, or, they're getting that lack of support. So a lot of ladies have tried a lot of different vitamins, a lot of supplements, a lot of, quite frankly, things that I use in my program, and it hasn't worked for them. The reason that it hasn't worked for them is because nobody has told them that you actually have to prepare your body to be able to heal first. It can't just jump into healing because usually there's something holding it back. So when you said plan of attack, order definitely matters. The number one thing that I find with women who have tried their own healing journey and fall short is because, and it's not their fault, they don't understand the order and the way that the body works. We have to prepare it first by making sure that it can eliminate waste properly. And I start with calming down immune and nervous system reactions first. That also helps to reduce symptoms along the way. So once we kind of tone that down, then we go after the roots and then we go after the stalk. And when we do that, there is usually a little bit of kick up of symptom, but I've learned over the years it's not as bad when you've prepared the body to heal
Right.
first. And that's why
Right.
we do preparation first. And then after we go over after that stock and root, get out all the old junky stuff that's been holding the body back. The last thing that likely gets overlooked is healing and restoration of function. So even though there could have been a good, for example, if there's an old infection that's driving all of this, all of your reactions and everything, and somebody clears out the reaction, your liver, your bladder, your kidneys, your intestines, they are likely still functioning in a damaged state, even though what's causing the damage isn't there anymore. So the last phase is heal, repair, and then optimizing and beefing up and getting 100% or as close to 100% efficiency for our body. That those three things in order, preparing, then eliminating, and then restoring, is the whole in order framework that gets the relief that my ladies are looking for, the freedom that they're looking for to not have to worry about what they're eating, or even like cross contamination or accidental exposure. Like those fears start to calm down, because if they do come into contact with it, their bodies are more well equipped to be able to handle it. And then when you circle back to minding mind and the mindset part of it, they're more aware. So if something does kind of pop up, because we don't live in bubbles, we don't live in a sterile world, we get exposed to something else, or they have a little reaction to something else, they're less fearful of, oh, it's all coming back, or something detrimental is happening. They're more mindful and they're more aware of what's going on in their body, so that they can take quicker action. They know it, they know that their symptom is valid. They have better education so that they can take quicker action. And they have a lifelong companion who will guide them. So they can always like message me back and say, I tried this. I know something's going on. What do I do? I never shut the door on my clients. So anytime somebody has a question, they can come back to me. But to circle back to what you were saying, yes, order is very important. It's the number one thing that is usually missing in somebody's healing journey. And over the years, working with clients, I have definitely, and I continue to keep an eye on my framework to make sure that that order is maintained, respected, and as new things are brought to my attention to make the order more effective and efficient, I incorporate it, I work it in.
I love that. I love the support that you offer, and I also love that you work with them to help them understand that the way their body is functioning is something that they can have control over. So they don't feel like these things are just happening to them. They can actually gain control with the right support. Can you say that people, the women that you work with, tend to eliminate the allergy altogether? Or when we say heal, is it that they have reactions less often? Is it that it can be literally removed?
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
Right now, because I send out surveys regularly of my clients when working with them, right now, they report 80 to 100% of their symptoms are resolved.
Wow.
So some of them feel like, if I was going to kind of say with confidence, but this was not part of the survey, I would say 100% of them feel that their life is better and they're able to have more freedom and do more. Some of them have not achieved like their full resolution, but they're okay with that because they can go to a birthday party and know that if a little piece of gluten ends up on their plate, they will be okay. And that was their goal. I have other people who have completely fully resolved their allergy and now they're able to eat what they weren't previously and they're fine. So I always tell my clients, it's not my goal to ever force them to eat any of their former food triggers. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to make your life better in whatever way you want to improve it. So if you just want to feel more confident about going out and living your life and you never want to eat an egg again, who am I to, who am I to force you to eat eggs? That is your goal. And the program accommodates that and they have my full support for that. But for those who miss eggs and they want to eat more eggs, then we make that a goal and we do, I work my hardest and work as diligently as possible to make that happen. And like I said, 80 to 100%, I'm very excited about.
Amazing. Like just to think, even if it wasn't completely eliminated, not cured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quotes again, air quotes, but to be able to live in more comfort to not be symptomatic all the time. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Or not
How
to be
long is the
fearful.
average time that you work with someone?
The average is about 9 months.
Nope.
It's not very long. And I will say the reason that it isn't very long is because of that order.
Mhm.
I will say when I started out my career, or when I started out in this specialty, it was more almost like 18 months to like 18 to 24 months. It was taking a lot longer over the years as I recognized, like I was saying, the importance of that order and
Mhm.
really started that preparation part, that getting those initial symptoms, those initial reactions and systems calmed down before we went after the things driving the food reactions. That's when time started ticking down. That's when people started getting better faster and even started seeing tolerance changes faster. Like a vast majority of my clients see the tolerances changing even before they finish the program. They start to notice little trickles. I just talked to her maybe like 2 days ago. She started February on Valentine's Day, and within the first month, she said that she could at least eat. She wasn't able to even eat like a full meal. She said she was able to eat 3 meals a day without any reactions. And then just maybe like 2 weeks ago, she was like, I can eat dairy now because that was one of her choices. Like she
Wow.
wanted to do that. So she was like, I can eat dairy with like no symptoms. And I was like, awesome. And at this point, she's only halfway through. So we're not even done. So yeah, that changes. It's funny. I tell people all the time, I wouldn't believe it if it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Like the only reason I believe it is because the ladies tell me, like, I get texts almost definitely weekly. I won't say every day, but definitely weekly. I get some text from somebody saying like, I can do this now, or I went here and it didn't bother me. And that's that. If I was going to say my goal for them, that's my goal for them. It's just to
I love it.
feel better, to
Wow.
feel more confident, to have more freedom. Like you said, in the mind, I want them to feel better about how they're working with their bodies and the reactions.
Mhm.
I love people that's like, it's not about what you're eating or what you're not eating. I want you to feel confident in who you are, what you're doing, what you're able to do with your life.
Amen to all of that. To all of that.
Yes.
I just love the idea that you're able to not only validate their experience, but teach them how to recognize what's happening in their body and then ultimately empower them to make choices that just make them feel good forever, right?
Mhm.
That's beautiful. How would you say, or what advice would you give to someone who, let's say, couldn't invest in your work right now, couldn't invest in working with you one-on-one? What are some things that they could do for themselves to kind of start their journey?
That's a really good question. I'm going to speak to the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ways that people can work with me.
Mm.
I don't believe in letting finances be a restriction. So when people, and I've had women who are working with me who started off saying, like, I can't afford it, I can't do this, or I can't do that. And I asked them, I was like, are you willing to have an honest conversation about what you can do or what the situation is so I can see how I can make it happen for you? That's thing number one. And we make it happen. 99% of the time, we make it happen. We make it happen without care credit, and we make it happen without charging a whole bunch of interest because I think that's kind of crappy. Like,
Yeah.
so that's thing number one. But thing number two, I think just honoring your symptoms for what they are, and not believing people who dismiss your symptoms, who dismiss your experience, no matter who they are or what profession or what license or degree they have or don't have. If somebody is telling you that it's not real, I kind of like, I'm on the end of, if you're telling me that it's not real, my first job is to say, or if you're telling me that you're experiencing something and they are real to you, my first instinct is to say like why and how. Let's try to figure out how that's even possible. And sometimes it takes a little digging, sometimes it doesn't, but it's, I think the first step is, if you're listening to this right now, there's at least one person in the world who's willing to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So taking those steps to finding a community and finding people who are in a position to be able to offer the type of help, but also willing to listen and willing to sit down and explain why things are happening. That at a minimum can be the first. And like I said, if you're listening to this right now, you at least know one person in the entire planet who can do that for you.
100%. I love it. I love it. All right. So where I I also say in my community, there are different types of coaching that I offer in all different levels, all different types of, financial agreements, but also like a lot of my content is free to consume, right?
Mhm.
So at least start with consuming the free stuff. Start to get curious about what you're feeling. Start to ask questions that also validate what you're feeling, right? I love the idea of moving away from that questioning, like, is this even real? Do I just have to live this way, right? No, the answer is no. You don't just have to live this way, right? So first you have to trust that you know what you're feeling. So if people wanted to follow you, where can they find you?
Yes. To backtrack, or I guess I should say to piggyback on what you were saying, yes, I do have all of those resources available. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just look up the Food Allergy Doc and you will find me. I've actually also created a quiz to help you find one of your dominant food clues to start breaking down what's going on in your body. I will definitely pass that information on, but if anybody's listening and wants to jot it down, you'll just go to myfoodclues.com/quiz. Quiz is free. You can note what foods that you have struggles with, whether they're allergies or intolerances, and it'll give you a starting point for the stock. We were talking about the food allergy weed. It'll give you a little preview as to what your stock and therefore your roots might be. So you might be surprised what result you get and if that kind of connects to other symptoms you've had in the past, or maybe other current conditions that aren't food related. And that can be a really good starting point to starting to pull all that information together. I also have resources on my website, which is myfoodclues.com. There's tons of resources for you to be able to look at videos, PDF. There's even a breakdown of one of those wellness profiles that I was talking about. So you can kind of just get an idea of what kind of information that you can gain just from working with somebody who's digging deeper to hear more about what's going on with you and make more sense of it.
Yeah. I love that, like that starting point. It just feels so relevant. It feels so relevant. So I'll make sure that I link in the show notes your social media handles, the quiz, and your website so that anybody who's interested knows exactly where to go and exactly how to reach you. I love that. I love what you're doing. I love that you're giving people a voice. I love that you're helping them understand that they can trust their body and trust their instincts and that they don't have to live in discomfort, because so many of us have accepted that this is just the way that it is and we don't have a choice. So thank you for giving voice to so many women everywhere and some men as well. I cannot let you go without asking the question of the hour. And the question is, how does minding yours, being instinctual, trusting your gut, impact the legacy that you'll leave?
I think it impacts the legacy, or I'll say it like this: the legacy that I want to leave is that of putting more advocacy and autonomy in our healthcare back on ourselves, like reclaiming and taking back our health. And I think that a large portion of that is through practical education of knowing how the body is supposed to work and respond, and bringing back awareness and support and advocate for acknowledging symptoms and speaking up about it. If I could leave the world with more people speaking out and asking more questions of, well, why is this happening? And what can I do about it that doesn't involve just taking another pill? Like that just warms my heart.
I love it. I love it. And that's powerful, right? That's all about taking the reins of your life.
Yeah, taking it back. And yes, it'll pass on to generations and generations and generations. But I would just love, I would love to see healthcare, especially in America, be more of a partnership between the practitioner and the client patient, and not so much the client and patient feeling like they're at the mercy of the practitioner and they can only do what they said and they have to believe them. And well, my doctor said this, so I guess that's what it is. No, I want to empower the world so that they have some knowledge, that they can have more of an active conversation and not be so passive about their healthcare.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Food Clues podcast. I hope you found today's talk insightful and inspiring as you navigate your journey towards better health and wellness. Ready to take the first step in conquering your food allergies? Visit www www.myfoodclues.com/quiz and take the Food Clues quiz today. In less than 5 minutes, you'll get your first food clue to identify the likely causes of your food reactions. This will be your first opportunity to uncover the hidden factors impacting your health and start your journey towards food freedom. Stay connected by following the Food Allergy Doc on Instagram. Enjoy the Food Allergy Freedom Collective on Facebook, where you'll find a supportive community and valuable resources to help you on your path to wellness. And don't forget to subscribe to the Food Clues podcast so you never miss out on an episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and share it with someone you know. Thanks for listening, and remember, your food clues are the key to conquering your food allergies. Take the quiz, join our community, and let's achieve food freedom together.